Are you guys ready to finally see the end of this series? Holy crap. So let's watch part 6 of Extra History's The 1918 Flu Pandemic, The Forgotten Plague.
Rio de Janeiro, 1919. This year, Carnival is different. The flu that had killed 15,000 in Rio is gone, but its spirit lingers. Float crews adopt macabre themes taken from the height of the outbreak. There's the Block of the Holy House, playing off a popular euphemism for the hospital. Behind them parades the Block of the Midnight Tea, named after a rumor that doctors killed terminal flu patients with opium overdoses. Streetcars pass, decorated with teapots and cemetery gates. A few months before, the same streetcars had collected the city's dead.
Man, I'm liking the morbidness of it, like, man. It's that morbid curiosity, eh? But, oh my gosh, guys. It's a bit much.
The third wave of the pandemic kept killing until 1920, but it was clear that the worst was over. Humans had done little to stop the virus. Instead, it simply ran out of fuel. Those who caught it became immune, and it spread across the globe so fast, infecting so many people, that herd immunity began to protect those who escaped previous waves. But there were still flare-ups. On November 11th, 1918, the news broke: an armistice. The Great War was over. People flooded the streets, ignoring bans on public gatherings. And in each city, a new wave of infections followed the impromptu celebrations. The same would happen again and again on a smaller scale, as loved ones gathered to welcome returning soldiers home. There were still outbreaks, still deaths, but everyone could see it was trailing off. The horror was past. All that remained was to count the cost, a project that continues to this day. In the years after the pandemic, researchers initially estimated the disease had killed 20 million people. Modern estimates have increased that number to 50 million. Though because statistics aren't available in the worst-hit regions, like India and Russia, the final number may be twice as many. According to modern estimates, it killed...
That's insane, man. It just kind of went out with, like, it didn't, like, I guess a whimper, like, you know, there's going out with a bang, and it just seems like, well, okay, we're done with you now. We're done with you now. Yeah, it seems to kind of just went out with a whimper. Though, as you mentioned before, it's still out there to a degree, right? But, you know, yeah, it seems a bit anticlimactic, at least the way it's being told here. Just like, well, alright. that happened, you know, like a freaking Marvel movie or something.
17 to 20 million in India, perhaps 4 million in Indonesia, possibly a million in Russia, 400,000 in France, and 390,000 in Japan. In the United Kingdom, it sickened a quarter of the population and killed up to 220,000. In the US, it took around 675,000, more than the Civil War, and killed 16,000 in Philadelphia alone. But for a disease that killed so many, it's hard to point out direct consequences. In fact, the flu seems to have worked in tandem with the war, each magnifying the effects of the other. In the 1920s, a wave of political unrest swept countries around the globe. This was because of the war, but also because the flu had revealed deep inequalities, especially in colonial rule. Post-viral fatigue from flu infections probably contributed to the depression and listlessness that took hold after the war. Yet, despite the heavy toll the flu took, and the heroism of medical workers that died fighting it, there's still no monument commemorating the event, other than plaques marking mass graves. Textbooks mention it, but usually just in passing. We chose not to remember, which is why some have christened it the Forgotten Plague.
That's wild, considering the amount of carnage that this thing caused. The fact that we could kind of just be like, sweep it under the rug. I mean, I kind of get it, like, at certain things, I feel like there are certain times when something kind of happens to me, and I kind of just want to be like, you know, when you make it pass through it, I'm like, well, it's time to forget about that. Like, you know, time to move on. But then, I don't know. I feel like in history, at least when, like, wars and crap happen, like, we have a hard time letting it go. We're like, we gotta commemorate it. We gotta talk about it forever, you know? But here it's just like with this, which is also just it's unique in terms of just how people have chosen to kind of seem to like overlook it. I don't know if it was because it happened during World War One and just thinking about the war itself was probably more popular, or whatnot. I don't know, but that's interesting. You'd think with all that death, people would just like not let it go, right? I don't know.
There are theories why society chose to forget the flu. Perhaps it came and went so fast that people simply remembered it as part of the war.
Mm,
Or it's possible that focus on the war and inability to see the big picture meant that society never really absorbed what happened. But keep in mind, it also hit a generation that was just more used to epidemics, in a time where mass death may have been less shocking. Conversely, some have argued that the flu was so traumatic, families formed unspoken agreements never to discuss it. The memories that did endure were intensely personal.
First, we offer
Parents, lost siblings, friends gone too soon, families impoverished when their breadwinners died. In some cases, soldiers came back from the trenches to find their entire family wiped out. Ask your family, and you might find a story of your own. Generations later, the trauma still lingers. Yet apart from Catherine Ann Porter's Pale Horse, Pale Rider, there was no explosion of novels about flu as there were about the war. It was a more difficult subject, its faceless enemy more challenging to portray than the man-made terror of the trenches.
yeah.
But Porter wasn't the only notable person to suffer from the flu. In fact, it infected so many famous people that it raises a chilling question. How different would our world be if even one of them had died? Among the ill were President Wilson, British
Ugh, I don't like Woodrow Wilson. Not that I'm wishing death upon him. I don't wish death upon anybody. I just don't like him.
Prime Minister David Lloyd George, Gandhi, Kaiser Wilhelm, and General Pershing. A generation of notable artists caught it as well, including T.S.
Oh,
Eliot
wow.
and a young ambulance driver named Walt Disney.
Oh, wow.
Franklin Roosevelt.
Holy crap. Dude, imagine all these people died. Could you imagine how different, like, society would be? Okay, wow.
Contracted it while sailing on USS Leviathan. Then there are the people we did lose. The president-elect of Brazil and Austrian painters Egon Schiele and Gustav Klimt. Lenin's right-hand man succumbed, clearing the way for his replacement,
Oh,
Joseph
wow.
Stalin. And in New York, the flu killed an obscure German immigrant, allowing his son to cash in his life insurance and expand the family's real estate business. His name was Frederick Trump. You
Oh.
might be familiar with his grandson. the flu-
Wow. You serious? Are you serious? Holy crap. Our president, Trump, at the time of this recording, Trump is the president of the United States of America. So dang, man. I'm telling you, how could this have been forgotten? like it's amazing. But again, I guess the war aspect of like world, in my opinion, I think it's the war aspect. I think World War One itself, again, like I mentioned in the first part of this series, or was it the second? I don't remember. But the point is, I had said that like this is happening so close to the war, and oftentimes when we watch videos about World War One, they never talk about this as it's happening. You know, like we've covered videos about World War One, like epic history and oversimplified. They may have mentioned it, but probably not that much because I don't have any memory of them talking about how it affected the war at all. Again, it's just an aspect you kind of just gloss over, and that's wild considering the long-term ramifications it might have had, like in the world, you know?
Also drove scientific discovery. Doctors developed new surgical techniques and procedures for disease containment. It likely sped up the civilian world's adoption of ambulances. The desperate vaccines produced during the pandemic, cocktails of antibodies from every bacteria doctors suspected, were the predecessor of today's combination vaccines like diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis. Nurses, who bore so much of the burden, won new confidence and respect for their profession. Increasingly, their discipline became more than serving as doctors' assistants, and the flu helped them be seen as professionals in their own right. Many cities and nations, caught off guard by the crisis, established new health departments and organizations to monitor disease. It helped push the idea of national health insurance and government-provided medicine, and it drove research. By the 1930s, researchers were crafting effective flu vaccines, and many who battled flu would go on to do great things. Anna Williams nurtured an entire generation of female researchers. FDR eulogized Welch via radio. And remember Oswald Avery, the guy Welch tasked with finding Pfeiffer's bacillus and who helped develop the pneumonia serum? After the war, he returned to researching bacteria, trying to discern how a bacteria without a hard coating transformed into a bacteria with one. After laboring for 20 years, he finally found the substance that caused the change: DNA. That's right. Avery discovered that the purpose of DNA is to carry genetic instructions.
Wow. Dang, I'm suddenly finding the origins of so many things. Dang, this is so enlightening. I feel like I'm being enlightened right now. My brain is just expanding. That's insane.
Today, he's considered a pioneer of modern genetics. The flu also drove research into Pfeiffer's bacillus, which many still believed caused flu. After working in a military hospital during the war, one Scottish doctor devoted his life to studying microbes. One day, he accidentally left a culture of it out for the night. When he returned the next morning, he found a strange mold growing on it that killed any bacteria it touched. That man was Alexander Fleming. And the mysterious mold? It was penicillin, the first wonder drug and probably the most consequential discovery of the 20th century.
Wow.
Even today, the 1918 flu remains a subject of study for researchers. In fact, over the last several decades, researchers and epidemiologists have started to make breakthroughs on the 1918 flu, helping us better understand what happened so we can combat the next great pandemic. Researchers still don't know where the flu emerged. There are way more theories than we portrayed, but we can now name the culprit. In 1998, researchers obtained a lung sample from a frozen grave in Alaska and confirmed what many suspected. The 1918 flu was H1N1, an avian strain, new then, but is less dangerous now that our immune systems have had a century of exposure. They've also begun to unravel the pandemic's mysteries. For instance, we now suspect that it killed young, healthy people precisely because they were young and healthy. Those patients that turned blue, they probably weren't killed by the flu at all, but by their own immune systems. Once infected, victims' immune systems triggered a massive inflammatory response known as a cytokine storm. But instead of neutralizing the flu, this enormous release of disease-killing cytokines filled the lung sacs with fluid and inflamed them so much they couldn't absorb oxygen. But the greatest lesson of the flu pandemic is that flu can't be ignored. We don't shrug off new flu strains anymore. In fact, many health organizations monitor both human and animal strains, predicting the dominant variety each season and creating vaccine ahead of time. If a new strain does arrive, we'll be much more prepared than doctors were in 1918. We have electron microscopes, antivirals, vaccine labs, and tested containment plans. But a vaccine would still take months to produce, meaning we'd start by using the same measures they did a century ago. Voluntary quarantine, banning public gatherings, staggering work hours. In fact, as Rob researched these episodes, the city where he lives, Hong Kong, closed schools to prevent a seasonal flu outbreak and killed birds that tested positive for avian influenza. A century later, the battle against the 1918 flu and its offspring continues. So seriously, get your flu shot. From an actual medical professional and not a animated cat.
Alright, that was great. That was enlightening. And it goes to show you, yeah, about, we can't ignore these things, especially in terms of just the medical field, right? So, that was interesting. I like that series. It was so unique compared to what we usually do, which is just war and tactics. Like, this really was a deep dive into the medical aspect of history, especially with such a prevalent event. And just the innovations that came from it in terms of the medical field. Honestly, just amazing. This was great, guys.